G'day, it's Tim from Extension Fitness. I'm just making a short video to talk to you about how to do the hip hinging movement pattern. And this is something that's a movement skill that's quite difficult for many people to grasp, and it takes a bit of practice. So it would be useful for you to watch this video and just see me do some drills where you can hone in on the components of how it's done. So what is a hip hinge? A hip hinge is when you are going to create a hinge with the legs being one section, the hips being the pivot point, and the back being the other section. So closing the hinge, opening the hinge, closing the hinge, one arm here, pivot point here, opening the hinge. And this is relevant, this movement's relevant when you're doing something like running. So one arm here, pivot point, one arm here. So running, picking something up off the ground, doing something like a kettlebell swing, doing a deadlift, and even lowering a pram into a boot of a car, potentially. Although you can flex your spine when you do that, that's not necessarily a problem. Okay, so it's a very everyday movement pattern, but it's can be quite difficult to learn how to execute it properly. So one useful little tool that you can employ to help you along is a bit of dowel, or it's a broomstick handle. So I'm just going to show you how you can use this to help you get the feel of what it's like to do a proper hip hinge. So you're going to place the dowel alongside your spine. You want to connect it to your sacrum, so just above your butt cheeks, in that area. So one bit's touching, and then the other part is going to make contact with your upper back and neck. And then from here you can practice unlocking the knees a little and shifting your hips backwards, and maintaining the dowel in contact with your sacrum, upper back and the back of your head, like so. Or you can squat down and do that. Drive the knees up and maintain the contact points. Now what you may find is that if you're going to do something like a squat, you may find that your upper back starts to round and you lose the contact at your sternum, at your sacrum and your upper back and neck. At that point you've lost what's called a neutral spine posture, and it can be useful to just get the feel for what it's like to restrict the amount of flex that's occurring in your spine and have that all occurring at the hips. So sometimes in life, when you're doing various things, it can be useful to limit the amount of spine flexion you have in certain activities and maximize the amount of hip flexion. And this especially can be true if you're doing something like picking up a weight off the ground. If you want to keep the load very close to your body, depending on the shape of your back, it can be useful to just learn what it feels like to minimize spine bending and maximize hip bending. So not laying it down a hard and fast rule for anyone. Different people have different proportions, but in some situations like that, it could be useful to keep a fairly neutral spine posture and generate lots of flexion in the hips. Also, if you're doing a deadlift, in order to stop the weight travelling out in front of you too far and increasing the amount of torque that's going through your lower back, it can be useful to learn how to keep the weight close to you, close to your pivot points here, And in order to do that, many people have to limit spine bending and maximise hip bending. So that's the hip hinge movement pattern, why it's relevant and how you can practice it. And I hope this is useful for you.